right, if everybody's ready to get started, Mr. Martin, you got everything on the computer? Ready to go?
Oh, it's this, all of a sudden, it's hard to decide.
All right, I will call this meeting the Annexation Committee to order. We'll establish that we have a quorum. We do. Excellent. And get the applications there, we'll be ready to go. Yes. Okay, thank you. When last we met, we set this meeting hoping that we would have be into the master planning phase. We're not there quite yet. This farm needs to set up, if you give us kind of an update of where we are in that process, because that is obviously very important to annexation as we move forward.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Currently, we are underway, working with our consultant, KPS Group. Jason Fondren, KPS Group, is serving as the lead on the consultant's end. And right now, we are working through one of three phases on the comp plan project. Phase one being data gathering and synthesizing. Phase two will be the public participation program, which we're looking to start either towards the end of October or the beginning of November. And then the final phase, three, will actually be taking both the data and the input from the public and writing the draft. So that's a quick update on where we are right now with the comp plan project.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Mr. Chair, do we have a tentative end time on when you think we'll have 9% or 100% completion of that?
Well, let's see, when we entered into the contract earlier this month, we said about 10 months. So, so we're about 9 and some change out, completion of the project.
All right. We will start with, well, he gets connected with the large stack that's on top that is a group annexation of Silver Spur. The rest of Silver Spur, if you recall, our last meeting, we annexed the Browning property, which is on the corner here, or recommended for annexation. And out of that, the remainder of the properties got together and came together with one application for each property, and that has been put together as one line item on this agenda. So what we will do is we will start reviewing, and as we get to each property, we'll call the property owner up to speak and tell us why they want to be annexed into Hoover. And the first person up is Ms. Deborah Faust.
My name is Deborah Fout, and I own the property at 1516 Melton Road and 1518 Melton Road. I own two houses there. I've lived down there since the 70s, and just in the last, well, actually about 2 years ago, I built the second house there. But I feel like it's just a formality to be in Hoover because we're right in the middle of Hoover. And every time, if somebody asks me where I live, I say, do you know where Ross Bridge is? And they say yes, and that's how I tell them to get to my house. But you know, we tried this before. We tried it years ago, never even made it to the annexation committee. But you know, we walk the trails at Ross Bridge. We know some of the people in the apartments, and you know, we feel like we're a part of the community anyway. We shop the stores. I bought 2 Toyotas from Hoover Toyota last year. I mean, you know, it's just, to me, it's a formality, but I would just like to get my property in there. I pay for fire coverage on both houses and, you know, to get the services. And, of course, we pay for our garbage service. But, I'm planning on living there the rest of my life, but when my kids inherit, you know, they'll inherit property that's worth more than, you know, would be in the county, and they may choose to live there. My older house that I lived in for all those years, is a rental property, and it is just gonna be some additional income for me as I retire. Right now, my nephew's living in it, and, just fixing to move out, and I have another lady that, she's a single lady with 2 dogs, and she's gonna be moving in November. But, you know, with me living right next door, I didn't advertise it, I pick who's gonna live there, because I'm gonna have to be their neighbor, and I don't, you know, don't wanna get somebody that's gonna cause me any problems. But, you know, like I said, I feel like I live in Hoover now, and it's just a formality, and I'd like to be part of the Hoover community.
Yes, ma'am. Any questions for Mrs. Fowler from the committee?
Ms. Fowler, you say you've attempted before. How many years ago was that?
It's been several years ago. I'm thinking it was like 12 or 13 to that, and I brought everybody's up here at that time. And then since that time, Miss Browning and some of the others have tried, but when Miss Browning, when I heard from you, Dr. Middlebrooks, at our library convention in Montgomery this year that she was gonna be before the council, and I hadn't talked to her, but I came up to that meeting and then thought we would try again.
And were you given a reason why you were never?
They said that at the time, they told me that Hoover was not annexing anything, and we never even got invited to a annexation meeting. But that's what I was told. And I would like to say, we were planning on coming on the 18th, and Mr. Mark Brown, my next door neighbor, he was planning on coming on the 18th, but he's in Florida this week with his family. He's single, but he goes with his mother and brother every year to Florida. And Miss Henry is, she had a court date in Mississippi in the morning at 8 o'clock, so she had to go to Mississippi today, so neither one of them will be here
And
tonight.
just to verify, you have 0 children living with you, school-age children,
Right.
and your rental house, currently occupied by your nephew, has a 10-month-old, but the lady moving in has 0 children.
Yeah, she has 2 chihuahuas. And I will say that, you know, my granddaughter, I raised my granddaughter, and she went to school at Shades Mountain Christian School from age 2 all the way to graduation. So she was in school in Hoover, but it was a private school. So.
Miss Henry and Mr. Brown, did they have any children?
No, neither one of them have any children, and both of them are single. And Miss Henry's about my age, and Mr. Brown's just a little bit younger than me.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make this comment for the whole. We've had a lot of discussion about annexation the last X number of months, and actually have denied several similar pieces of property up under several different reasonings. One reasoning, this is really a 5-member committee, is because of waiting on a master plan. That was the reasoning on that. And also capacity issues at our schools. And thinking that by this time we'll have a little bit further move along with master plan, and also the school system would have been approved by the judge, what has not taken place. So hopefully that happen sooner or later. But we have denied several people up under those stipulations. And I just want to make sure I put that out there, that it puts me in a situation to evaluate. I'll be able to have evaluated as a whole over these last X number of months with other people. Now, as far as Ms. Browning, the only reason why I voted on that piece of property is because she's came the last 17 years. That council at the time asked her to do X number of things, which she has paid several number of dollars to upgrade certain things in her team to move the finish line for her. That was the reason on that. So I don't want to go on record that we have denied people, and I don't know. That's where I stand on that point for myself.
Any other questions? Then I'll call Mr. Frederick. You're done speaking.
I'm Robin Frederick, and in Hoover for the fire protection and police protection. Cause I'm right down the road from the new apartments, we have a lot more traffic than we've ever had in the past. So that's my main reason. I don't have, I have two children, but they're grown and married. They're not there, they're out today. So it's just me.
Any questions for Mrs. President? All right, thank you. Mr. Haberman? Well, excuse us. I completely understand, sir.
I'm basically the same reasons that everyone, it's nothing, we've been trying since the Ross Bridge project started. I think this is my fourth or fifth application, so it's basically the same reasons that they want in.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Haberman?
Mr. Hoover, you were in on the previous request, and then, is that true?
Yes.
At that time, I believe Councilman Shaw looked on Zillow, and it was listed as for sale.
Right. And
Is your house currently on for sale?
I sent y'all an email explaining that. I was in a relationship with someone at the time that wanted me to sell my house, and that's my house in Hoover, and I did not want to. So the only way I could avoid an argument was I called one of my clients and said, "Will you list my house for a price it will not sell for?" And she said, "Yes," and I'll put no signs up or anything else, and that relationship's over with, and the contract's already come out, so they never even put up any signs.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Let's see, the Taylor property.
My name is Byron Taylor. I live at 1542 Melton Road. Well, I haven't actually moved in yet. I purchased the property about 3 years ago, about at 3 years ago. And I've remodeled the whole house. I plan on living there, but for pretty much the same reasons as I, go to the house. It's all around me. I'm right there in Ross Bridge, the new apartments there. I came to a meeting, I believe it was a couple of months ago, where they were annexing a piece of land for the grid that actually bags up to my property. So with everything around it, I would like to have Hoover fire department, police department, the manicured landscape as I go down Ross Ridge Parkway and turn into my area. So it really, it seemed to me that it's self-explanatory that should be annexed. I don't know all that go into it, but I know it would enhance my property value, and also the amount of work that I've done to the house. It would fit in with everything that's going on around it.
Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Taylor, do you have any children living with you?
No, I have. My children are grown. This be me and my wife. We'll be staying there. We presently own in Pleasant Grove now. I'm putting this house together. That's what I do for a living. And purchased a piece of property. It was more feasible for me to make that what I wanted and to stay where I'm at.
Thank you, sir. And last, Mr. Whaley.
I spoke to Mr. Whaley today, and he assured me he was gonna be here, and I'm not sure why he didn't show, but Mr. Whaley is retired with his wife, and it's just the two of them there. And I wanted to say one other thing about our community. When they built the apartments, they took Melton Road, which is a county road, and made it the entrance to the apartment, and the exit comes out right, and I'm sure y'all seen it if you've been in there, comes out right beside right in front of Mr. Brown's house next to me. So So, I mean, that's another reason we feel like we're part of Homewood, and you're talking about the school
Hoover,
children.
Hoover.
I mean Hoover. You know, I said Homewood because I work at the city of Homewood, so, but, and we have a much bigger council, I might add. But anyway, Mr. Brown, we dealt with, you know, the school buses come every morning, but there is about 6 school buses that come every morning to pick the kids up from the apartment, so I know that's where a lot of your kids are coming for the schools. But as far as the rest of our, there's 20 acres there, and I think y'all annexed 6 with Miss Browning, so there's 14 acres, and there's really no children on the rest of on our property. So we would really appreciate if y'all would consider taking us in and making us Hoover citizens, because we consider ourselves members of your community anyway, because we're right in the middle of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all for coming and speaking to us. That means a lot to the committee when we can come and we can put a face to the property. I do understand what Mr. Murphy was saying and appreciate it, because the master plan is something that really means a lot to the city, really means a lot to us, and it's something we ran on, and something that we really believe needed to be done for Hoover. We are on the way, and we have a ways to go with that. We are also, at this point in time, facing a budget that is very, very slim margin. And it's something that we also, I think, as a committee need to consider, because as you take on more residents, you take on more property, you take on more of an expense with your garbage and your city services, and it's something that we really need to consider. It's not, I wouldn't say that it is going to be a huge increase, but it is going to be an increase nonetheless. It's something I think that the community needs to consider as we consider these properties. So we have completed the first set, and we'll vote on these together.
I have a few more questions, Mr.
Oh, yes, sir, go ahead.
I'd like to know what the, 2 board and school board members here, if y'all are willing to speak on the annexation, how you feel. I'd also like to know how the mayor's office feels about it. And since we do have a city planner, although we don't have the master plan yet, I'd like to hear his expertise.
Absolutely. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've had to come down, would like to speak here.
Yes, sir, we are.
We appreciate, I'm Craig Kelly, I'm on the Hoover School Board currently, Ms. Bauman is serves with me, so we are here obviously out of the interest of the zoning. You know, our position is if you zone in school children to the city of Hoover, it's our job to find them a place to go to school. As our past president, Mr. Presley said, we are running out of space in our schools on the west side of town. Deer Valley has a mobile home in it right now that's hopefully temporary, waiting on Judge Heikler to rule on our zoning plan. Nothing against any of the potential landowners here. I'm not speaking on that. I'm speaking on what you know is that we are very, very crowded in our school system on the west side. So we appreciate the diligence and your position right now.
Mr. Kelly, I've asked each one of these homeowners, and I don't believe any of them have any school-aged children. Does that factor into how you feel personally about this annexation?
Dr. Millbrooks, I just have to default back. If you annex in the houses, it's our job to find a place for those school children to go. We would welcome any child that's in public education to find a place for them to go. We understand what it costs to build new facilities, and that's what we're up against now. Deanna, you have anything to add?
Well, I guess it would just go to what your question was just now, is, we look into the future as well, and not just today, and so we just gotta be thoughtful of our capacities, especially Deer Valley is the one that's really in trouble right now.
Thank you.
If I could ask a question, this is, and I'm not up to speed on zoning, this is zone residential, correct?
Yes,
It
sir.
has to stay residential unless petition's made. So there's no potential for it to be any denser population with potential children?
What we would, no, it's not, but what we would do, and I, Mr. Martin, what we did with the last property is that we looked at it and wanted to do a zoning where it would not be able to be changed into a mass residential development. We want to make sure that properties coming in to protect your interests as well as to protect your own come with an appropriate zoning that does not allow unbridled growth.
Unless we're prepared with facilities for the children to go to school. Of course,
Yes,
we
sir,
welcome any child, any residence that's there. But again, we have to be prepared to have a place for them to go to school.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Kelly?
Just a note, Deer Valley, if I'm not mistaken, is that close to 900?
And Deer Valley is exceeded capacity right now, except for the, I can't remember the exact. They were at 90% 6 months ago, and we've got more students than we had last year, and I can certainly give you the numbers, but we're at capacity right now with Deer Valley, unless the federal judge grants the zoning request that we have in front of the federal court right now. We did hear some numbers this morning in a meeting at the central office. If the zoning plan goes through, we're at like 150 okay in that community. In other words, we'll be 150 allowable students to come in. Now that depends on what happens south of the current developments of the permits we have online right now. So assuming the judge rules in our favor or the community's favor, then we'll be okay. For right now, we have to do what we need to do to house the children.
And again, nothing, just in comment, this is a huge decision we're about to undertake right now, based on us trying to move forward and plan appropriately. But Deer Valley has more kids in it as a K through 4 than most high schools in the state of Alabama.
That's correct.
There's 2 portables right now.
2 portables, I'm sorry, I thought it was 1. And, again, if the plan goes through and the thoughtfulness of the city about planning what we're doing with what you're building, we appreciate the concerns and the density's been reduced. Front door fees are helping, but capital expense on, just to give you an idea, to put the footprint of Hoover High School without any internal contents would cost $120 million. Hoover High School is almost at max capacity right now. If something doesn't change and we don't get the zoning request, we've got to look at coming up with funds to build structure. Shelter. Thank you for allowing me to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Rice?
On behalf of the mayor, he's spoken several times about the wisdom and the propriety of kind of cleaning up small pockets that are completely surrounded by the city. And then, you know, I know we had this discussion before with the previous annexation on that, in this area. With complete sensitivity, and I won't even speak to the school situation because we have some experts here and they've given you a good answer on that. So with sensitivity to the school issues we know we face in this zone of the city, we brought Hoover to these people. This is not a mass development. This is not an opportunity for somebody to come in. It goes to Mr. Posey's answer to the previous question. If I remember correctly, we did Browning property as a state lot. Is that how we solved that?
No, sir, it is coming up, and it would be zoned A1,
Okay.
which allows you the maximum, you would have to have, isn't it, 3 acres max per house? So it absolutely knocks out any kind of,
Can't be chopped up.
yes, sir,
Can't
absolutely.
become garden homes and those kind of things. These folks inside the red borders can't all band together, sell their property, and we get a subdivision. That's, so to the point of providing city services, non-school services, the city services, we're protecting it. I think everybody's probably paying fire protection and receiving protection from the fire department. It's in the police jurisdiction, so we're patrolling it, we're responding to crimes, any request for assistance there. It really comes down to garbage, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm going to speculate that the increased ad valorem we would receive from those properties would probably pay the garbage bill for these. So I really don't see any increased cost to the city. Again, I'm speaking completely, not even addressing the school situation, because that's not our purview. You know, we think that this is a fair request, and again, we kind of came out and we built Hoover near them, and then we built it brought Hoover to them.
Any questions for Mr. Rice? Mr. Martin?
Well, Mr. Rice touched on a number of things that I too was looking at from a pure planning standpoint for city services, not school services. But the city does presently surround these properties on all sides. We have annexed the Browning property, which is at the end of Silver Spur, so our services are already running to that property, or will be, and therefore we, with the apartment complex directly across Melton Road, we do see this as more of a cleanup item to provide more clarity as to the services that are provided in this area, and this being a relatively small donut hole in our city limits, from a planning standpoint, this would seem to be a cleanup item and not overbearing on our city services.
Questions from Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin, to clarify what we were discussing earlier about zoning,
Yes.
if you are brought into the city, you will have to be zoned appropriately for the city.
That's correct.
That's right, and we are looking at these single-family properties and the ones that are cleaning up, we're requiring them to come in a way that cannot be subdivided to create something that is not there and would not be facilitated there. We are looking for you to stay in the manner in which you came in, more or less.
That's correct. I believe we have the zoning case for the Browning property coming to us to the Planning Commission next month. The request is A1, which was impressed upon them by the city. We would look for these other properties to come in as A1 as well, or be zoned A1 once in the city. The A1 agricultural district, as you pointed out correctly, Mr. Posey, is the zoning district that is most restrictive on lot sizes. There is a minimum 3-acre lot size for any lot that is created in that zoning district. And with a quick query of not just the highlighted properties here, but also the Browning properties, the individual parcels, there's not a way that I see that any new lots can be created in this donut hole, if you will, in our city limits, if they are brought in and zoned A1. There is not a singular parcel or tract that is 6 acres in size. So therefore, you cannot legally subdivide into 2 lots, 1 lot into 2 in the A1 district. So that's, if that adds confidence to your decision, just know that the A1 district is what is being proposed and what the city would recommend in order for there not to be any additional lots. If we look at the estate lots, then those minimum required lot sizes drop to 1 acre. And so that's why we'd like to stick with A1.
One last comment, Mr. Chair. I'll be making my vote based upon, I was a resident that has came to apply, and I wake up and read another person with annexing, I will still wait until after master plan was developed. I want to be fair here. I'm just basing mine, based on I want to be fair to all. Not that I don't want to go and clear up those areas, but I want to be a fair person.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out too, once again, Mr. Kelly and Ms. Ballman, I thank you for being here. I absolutely take what you say very seriously. I understand that we not only have to look at today, but the future as well. I have to conclude that these bright young eyes over here have very many decades left to live on these properties. And I surely pray to God that Judge Heikela makes a decision before those decades come to pass. So, with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 8 property owners on Melton Road and Silver Spur Lane.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
have a choice, sir. All right, since there's three of us, you want to do a roll call?
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Yay.
Mr. Murphy?
Nay.
Mr. Posey?
Yay. And can I ask you a question before we move forward? Are there any that were not, that we received that are not in here that are waiting on the master plan? I thought we've got everything that we've had is on here. Are there any that have not, that any applications that have come that we're not considering? That are waiting after the master plan, or is that something that was just, okay,
This is everything that we have.
yes, okay,
Since your last annexation.
okay, awesome, thank you.
I'm more so talking about, Mr. Chairman, what we denied, not that they pulled it back.
Oh,
We-
okay.
We denied.
Thank you. Okay, now I understand. I'm sorry, I just had to ask that. Okay. The second item is a petition for 652 Creekside Circle. And,
Mr. President, they do understand that this just moves it to the full body.
yes, let me state that what we have done today is recommend this for it to the complete council. So it will be placed on a future agenda, and you will need to come back to that and go through the same process again with the council. And there will be a first and second reading on that ordinance to bring you in. So the first, Council President Smith's policy is that with the first reading, for you to come, state your case, Mac will be here to pull up the property, talk a little bit about the surrounds. And then the second reading will be the actual vote. So plan to come to 2 council meetings in a row to be for those. Everyone understand? Okay, thank you.
And unless Mr. Smith has a problem, the first reading would probably be October 2nd, which would be.
Okay,
It's too late to put that on for Monday night, but October 2nd.
the first October meeting, second would be the second October meeting, tentatively.
And like I said, that needs to be approved of the president of the council for that.
All right, so the second property, Mr. Martin, if you'll go over a little bit of the surrounds.
All right, if you'd like for me to include my planning synopsis.
Yes, sir,
While I'm up here.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we are taking a look at 6522 Creek Circle. I have this shown on the overhead from the map provided in the application. This is located adjacent to, it does abut the city limits of Hoover. However, when taking a look at the proposed annexation, found it's not directly accessible from the city of Hoover. As a matter of fact, if this were annexed, all city services would have to leave the city limits by going down South Shades Crest, turning on Morgan Road, coming back towards Bessemer on Morgan Road, and then entering through a subdivision, all the way to the back of this subdivision to Creek Circle. So, while the property does abut our city limits and is certainly eligible to apply for annexation, just from a city service standpoint, I'm not sure that it makes a whole lot of sense to expand our city services and have them travel outside of the city limits and through another neighborhood that's not currently in Hoover and served by Hoover. Routing the services outside of the city limits to serve this property, I think lessens, from a planning standpoint, lessens service efficiency and increases cost. Not to mention the impact that it would have on roads that don't belong to us. So just based on the analytics from that standpoint, again, if the school system wants to speak to their issues, I'll certainly yield to their conclusions, but just from a pure servicing standpoint, does not seem to increase efficiency or decrease costs. It seems to do the opposite. So just from a planning standpoint, I would recommend against it.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. and Mrs. Boone, would you like to come speak about the property? And I do want to point out that with this application, there's several letters of recommendation. A lot of folks love you, so, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Sounds like you have a lovely daughter.
Oh, yeah.
My voice is low, so I can see. But we appreciate, the opportunity just to apply. And Ms. Hammond, she was really honest and frank with me about the process. But first thing I said to her, and I said, I believe in miracles. And if I don't, there's always gonna be a no. And the property that we do live at right now, we went in just kind of based on the information from the builder and the residents, just saying that, we're touching Hoover, and that whenever the property got built up a little bit more, that there would be a possibility for annexation. And we had actually been residents of Hoover for about 11 years, and both of our daughters were in the Hoover school system. My oldest daughter graduated from Hoover High, and we thought the home was a great opportunity, but when school rolled around and the process of not being in the Hoover school system became a reality for my youngest daughter, it's been really hard. And so, of course, I've been asking for possible exceptions from the board, Hoover of Education, Hoover City Schools, I'm sorry, with, of course, the no answer, of course. That's why we applied for annexation, because our property does touch Hoover. Of course, we didn't know the process, just still being hopeful. And of course, having friends that want to fight for us, for our daughter to return to the Hoover school system, because of course, we want to be a part of Hoover. We've always been a part of Hoover since we've been in Birmingham. My husband, we were not prepared to talk tonight.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
And I'm sorry, and I sent you those letters feeling like I was harassing you, but I was like,
that's great.
everybody wanted to share something. I didn't see everything that everyone sent, because some people probably sent it directly to you. But I heard what you said, and I know what you're saying makes sense for the city of Hoover. We were still being hopeful. And of course, I just saw the last properties, and I did read the article on the Browning, so I understood how long they've been trying to get into Hoover. I didn't see the map to know how much they were surrounded by Hoover, so I do understand. I have a clearer picture now I don't know what else. Besides, I know that y'all have to decide, and I just know that for us, for my daughter anyway, I know she's one student, and I know that they're having problems with Hoover school system as far as the population and everything. I know for her, she really misses the school system, and she is still connected, to her classmates, and she still is very influential, to them. Even the first day of school, when school started, she just sent this very adult, inspiring message to them at about 5 o'clock in the morning. This is like, keep your head up, don't let anyone stop you. If you get pushed, get back up. I was like, who told you to write these things? But she said, I can't, right now, we're doing homeschool because she is wanting just to kind of stay in a safe environment. She's like, I just really wanted to, inspire them and let them know that they can do whatever they put their minds to. And she was like, I wish that I had regular homework because we are doing homeschool. We haven't entered her into another public school system yet. We're just being hopeful, and I don't know if it's gonna change, but I just at least wanted to put in our name in the hat of the application and just see how it would go.
Thank you, and Mr. Kelly, Ms. Baumann, if you don't, this is a great testament to your institution, and, they didn't say they wanted to be here because we have cool Hoover signs that talked about you, so.
Yes, and thank you, if I might, thank you so much for your comments. All three of my children went through the school system, and we're very, very fortunate. To echo the city's position, transportation with buses would be an issue for us also, for probably the same reason that the city brought up. Certainly, we welcome you back as a family into the city. If that happens, we first want to shake your hand.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just,
You gotta worry about blood.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Spoon, I just want to commend you both for, just like any good parent, wanting the best for your children. It has been my desire ever since coming on to the sanitation committee to help clean up the map of Hoover. Hence my previous vote on the previous properties, how they're completely surrounded. I think it would be somewhat hypocritical of me to approve this property because it is not per se cleaning up the map. But I do feel for your story, and honestly, I will hurt for you guys tonight because I understand how dear our Hoover schools are and how wonderful they are. With that said, I do believe you deserve a vote, and I would like to, unless Mr. Murphy has another comment before I make a motion.
I totally concur, and thank you so much for coming, and
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to motion for 6522 Creek Circle for annexation into the Hoover.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Mr. Rice, before we proceed, do you have anything on behalf of the mayor's office you would like to say?
Gosh, I was hoping you weren't gonna ask me that.
Well, won't you feel left out?
Yes, I appreciate that. We've heard from Mr. Martin, and he's our subject matter expert on planning issues. This, I think probably it goes to Dr. Middlebrook's comment about what's a cleanup. This is a difficult case, but from the map, and this is my first opportunity to see this, this feels like we're putting our finger over into a subdivision, to be quite honest with you. And Mr. Martin's comments are correct about access. Who's serving you guys now from a fire and a law enforcement standpoint? Indian Ford?
Indian Ford, sorry.
Yes.
And then Jefferson County
Sheriff's
Sheriff
Department.
Department.
Okay. This is difficult. There's a substantive difference between this map and the one that we saw on the other case. I believe we just have to defer to Mr. Martin's expertise as a planner. And that's why we brought him on board, not to put him on the hot seat. This is what he went to school for. And these are the things that, that we have to focus on. This probably would be pulling the boundaries rather than filling in a gap.
Thank you, sir. Now we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Nay.
Mr. Murphy?
Nay.
Mr. Posey?
A heavy heart, I say nay. But I do encourage you to, you have a lot of new neighbors. Do for your neighbors. That's all that these other folks did. Stay on those folks. Come back and see us.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you.
votes that aren't funded.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Okay, we have one more petition here, if y'all will come on down. This is, for 5430 Sour Creek Lane. And Mr. and Mrs. Wright.
Yeah, my name is Johnny Wright, this is my wife Katie, and I appreciate you guys allowing us to put this petition in and having us stand here that we can talk to you about our property. If you can, kind of familiar with the application, I'm not sure, I mean, I can kind of describe where it's at, and the property that's outlined in black right there. My wife and I, we actually live right across the street right now, and this property, we're in the neighborhood of Greystone. We live behind the gates. Our entire family lives in the neighborhood of Greystone. And this piece of property that we've had our eye on for years came up for sale a few months ago. And we walked over there and we bought it. The only drawback is it's not in Hoover. And our family, along with our extended family, has enjoyed Hoover for the last 5 years. We all have small children. We run around in the neighborhood together, and we just enjoy all that Hoover has had to offer to us. We would like nothing more than for this property to be pulled into the city. We have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and much like the last group, we would really, really like to take advantage of the Hoover City school system. And I would also say that you guys have done an outstanding job with Hoover. You have a great reputation in our area. We would be so disappointed if we knew that we weren't going to be able to send our children to that school system. I would add to it that the fire station down the road, I think if we had a fire, the Hoover Fire Station would be there. It is zoned for Cahaba Valley, but they're about 3 times as far away. The garbage truck passes right by the driveway that goes up to the house because the driveway comes and connects into Legacy Drive. The garbage truck rides by there every single day. So. And not to mention, I have done my homework on the amount of taxes that I'm going to have to pay that I would not be paying if it weren't in Hoover, all of which you will have the advantage of using. And we've looked at all that, and we're willing to take on that new expense as our family. We think it's well worth it so that we can have the advantages of all that Hoover has to offer. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the property, what it connects to, what it looks like if you guys have any. Other than that, I really thank you for having us today, and I hope you guys voted in.
Questions for Mr. and Mrs. Wright?
I'll just, once again, thank you for coming and wanting to be a part of our community and our schools especially. As we echo many times, that's what brings people to Hoover is our wonderful school system. But I would be remiss just to say that just like the previous applicants, it looks like this is not cleaning up a pocket per se. It looks like it is extending our boundaries somewhat, even though I understand you're right there inside Greystone. Maybe if all the surrounding, that whole pocket came in together, I might think differently, but I don't think I'm going to be inclined to approve it with my vote. And now I understand I've spoken to one of your family members, and at the time I wasn't able to pull up this map to see that it is not completely surrounded by Hoover. So just with that said, these votes aren't against anyone, and they're not done lightly. I completely understand your wishing to be here.
I think my only comment will be is, and I've said it before, so I won't regurgitate it back in detail. There's a lot of people that will like, parents love being Hoover because of the schools, and it puts me in a situation, because I'm a fair person, to have rejected people in school and turn around and approve a person in the same boat. My total focal point, whether you're surrounded by Hoover or not surrounded by Hoover, is long-term plan and moving forward with that. So again, back to Mr. Miller's point, this is not against anybody. I wish we could bring a ton of folks in, but it's just not what we have done with others. And definitely say it was when we received our master planning and other things were being done, that we will revisit a lot of things, and we have rejected people as well too, so.
Mr. Wright, I had a question. We had a conversation a while back, and you had spoken to everyone around that strange parallelogram, and they were not interested at the time of coming here, is that correct?
That's correct.
But you did speak to them on that.
Yeah, this part of those Saddle Creek properties, those properties are kind of nestled in and around Greystone, if you're familiar with that history. Greystone kind of came in and built the properties all around it, and some of the people there, I'm assuming at some point they had the choice to try to get pulled in or not. I do know there is one Saddle Creek property, for example, right down the road that did get pulled in. I don't know when. If I had to suspect, it's been 9 or 10 years ago. But it was a very similar situation to this, where it just sort of jutted out and touched part of Hoover. But I do have an appreciation for your master plan, and I understand where you're coming from. But yes, I mean, everyone else is pretty much in Shelby County around us.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, did you want to come speak to your recommendation?
In taking a look at this case, I found the situation to be somewhat similar to the case preceding it, that we didn't really have a case where the applicant was going to be a part of an effort to clean a hole in the city limits. This property is not as far out or far removed as you travel in road miles as the last case. But I think there are still some concerns. One being Saddle Creek Lane itself. It's a substandard street off of Legacy, but not much more than just an asphalt driveway. And so this property is at the end of that substandard street. Our services are going to have to utilize that street. I did not see where it was gated, or is it gated? So.
There's a gate on Legacy Drive, that's where the trash would be. I don't know that Hoover would have to ever use that road at all. I mean, it's basically what you said, it's a long driveway.
Yeah, the mailbox is on Legacy Drive.
Okay. But if we had an emergency response, we would have to utilize that roadway. And that seems like an awfully long way to pull a trash can. But that was just one thing I noticed, that it didn't really seem to be cleaning up an issue with holes in the city limit. And so just trying to take a look and see what, annexation by annexation, case by case, what are the benefits to the city? And there may be some property tax based on the assessed value. The general fund only receives 6.5 mils, so it would have to be very substantial for that to really amount to much. Just for example, one assessed value I saw for the property as of August of this year. Keep in mind, market value is different from assessed value. But assessed value is what the property tax is generated off of. And I have a little over 82,500. And with 6.5 mil rate, the general fund would receive about a little less than $540 a year. The city schools with 46 mils would be looking at about $3,800 a year. But I know that was a question I was asked. You know, what impact would it have from a property tax standpoint? And if the owner has some better values than that, I'll certainly leave it over to them. Another thing that I usually look for when trying to come up with a professional opinion is if a residential annexation takes you any closer to potential commercial property. And what I saw on one of the maps that's included in the application, it seems as though the city of Birmingham is actually along the highway 119. And so I didn't really see how this property positioned us to better reach out to commercial property either. And we know the commercial property is where we really make our gains from a tax standpoint. So all these things considered, I don't think this is a case where we would have to reach out at nearly as far as case number 2, but we would still have to reach out a little bit. And I don't see how it positions us to where we can take in any commercial property, which would really be a benefit to the city. So based on that, I would lean with a recommendation against at this time.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve 5430 South Creek Lane.
Second.
A motion and a second.
I apologize, the budget process has kept me bound up and I haven't had an opportunity to interact with staff on some of this. There is some intriguing, movement going on out there. I know there was an attempt, and I think there's still an ongoing attempt for some properties as you come right off of 119 and Saddle Creek, to bring in a number of those properties. And we really do see that as a cleanup in this neighborhood. They are, I think they're literally as you come into that part of Greystone, they're right there and they're not in the city, but you drive past them to get into that neighborhood. A lot of similarities, as Mr. Martin enumerated about this one in the previous case, but a couple of fundamental differences. One is, we are serving this, and the gentleman, Mr. Wright, stated that he felt like that our guys would get there first, guys and girls, if there were to be a fire. And that's correct, because we have a very robust automatic aid with Cahaba Valley Fire District. So whether they are in the city or out of the city, Fire Station 9 is responding to their property right now. And that is probably, you probably pay your fire dues to Cahaba Valley. Is that right? Well, we're going anyway, because we have that automatic aid agreement with them. We're patrolling that neighborhood, so there's no additional burden, in terms of police presence. We're talking about one garbage account, so again, any little bump we get an ad valorem, I think we'll probably cover that. I said earlier, we're going to speak to schools, but I'm going to opine that if there is any capacity anywhere in Hoover City Schools, it's in the eastern part of town. Is that correct? That's not, I'm not trying to put you in.
No, that's fine. Clay Park High School certainly has room. The only school that we're almost at max, would be there.
Very middle.
Younger kids, so it's probably not an issue certainly with this small family.
And I'm not trying to back y'all in any kind of
No.
state, that's just my understanding. That's how that works, so. Yes, it's much more convenient if every piece of property there, were willing to come in and a petition like we saw in the first case tonight. There is some concern about encroachment from other municipalities, and I think that's something that we do need to keep our eye on. I think Mr. Martin's correct in his statement about where our neighboring city is now, but there's some movement with landowners out there, and there's some opportunities for us to pick some things up, could have been movement that may be intriguing. So I hate to overrule our planner, but I think he is technically correct in his assessment, but I think there's some things below the surface of this case that are probably change our thoughts on this.
It won't be the first or the last time.
Yeah, I still like it.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Stanley?
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Nay.
Mr. Murphy?
Nay.
Mr. Post?
Yang, I'd love to have you, but I would encourage you to keep on those people by and come back and see us. Anything else?